Dinner is served. Igor, it's not that I don't appreciate the effort, but you know I prefer my meals uncooked. And how many times have I told you about using garlic? Yes, Master. Forgive me, Master. Please. Bite into Paradelphia. Thursday nights at 8, only on Toxic Radio. Paradelphia. Because what if it's all true?
Hey, buddy. Rah. Hey, man, that's a sweet heavy metal happy hour t-shirt. Where'd you pick that up?
Thanks, dude. I got it at the Toxic Radio shop.
Toxic Radio has a shop?
Yeah, dude. It's in the app or online at toxicradio.net.
That is sweet.
Yeah, and I also got a rockin' Toxic Radio hoodie and a Red Band Underground shirt. Dude, I'm gonna look so rockin' at the party tomorrow.
Well, I think you look pretty now.
Oh, wait, what?
The Toxic Radio shop is a place to get all your Toxic Radio gear. Shirts, hoodies, stickers. Find it at toxicradio.net or on the app. Don't buy it safe. Buy it toxic. Hey, where you going, man? All sports talk shows are the same, right?
I am bothered by everything.
You gotta go back to football school.
You call on this guy, it's just immeasurable.
Wrong. In a world filled with talking heads more interested in their own celebrity than actually knowing the sports world, it's hard to find the people who really care about sports first. Look no further. Wire to Wire has it all covered. These guys have the knowledge and the cred to back up their opinions. No hot takes to get attention, just straight up opinions. Know anyone else who correctly called the 2020 World Series and March Madness? How about 70% on the NFL and NCAA football last year? You don't. Bottom line, these guys know their shit. They aren't doing it for attention, they're doing it for passion. Wire to Wire. Live every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern, only on Toxic Radio and wherever you find podcasts.
Welcome to Wire Sports Podcast. I am your host, the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. To my right, I got Uncle Scholastic Shally.
Yo.
What's happening?
What's up?
And coming to us remote from Cleveland, Ohio. Columbus, actually. Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cuttrell.
What's going on, everybody?
Might as well call him NFL Trell. Guy's been undefeated the last 3 weeks. 3 weeks in a row, right? Just say yes. Even
last week I had one loss.
Oh, damn it. See, this is what I mean. But we got a lot to get into today. We got UFC, crazy things going on in the heavyweight division. We got MLB, the Hall of Fame, which basically will be inducting one person this year. And we got a ton of NFL stuff. We're getting into our all-pro stuff. We got to talk about the greatest football weekend that ever happened. Someone argued that with me. Give me a better weekend than that. It was incredible. All 4 games ending on the final play of the game. And then we'll get our all-pro list and break down the divisional or the conference championship games that happened this Sunday. 1 day of football, 3 o'clock and 6:30. I'll be in the Bahamas, drinking a Bahama Mama, watching both games. How you guys feel today? How you guys feel?
Good.
All right,
Definitely feeling good.
On the anniversary of legend Kobe Bryant passing away, let's do him justice. I appreciate you wearing that jersey. Respect to that. Is that why you're wearing it today? Because today's the anniversary?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to tell you a quick story before we get into the show. I was at the game that LeBron passed Kobe. I was at the game. It was in Philadelphia that LeBron passed Kobe. And the next morning when Kobe passed away, it was heartbreaking. Like I feel like I don't feel like a celebrity athlete or celebrity ever has caught my, like I teared up. Like I cried a little bit when I heard Gigi and the whole situation. Like I'll admit it. It was terrible. It was heartbreaking. So figured give Kobe a little tribute before we start the show. Any comments, Control, with the jersey?
No, just as much as just Kobe as a player, of course, like, Mamba mentality, everything like that. Like you see it living on through all these players, but even beyond that, like he made these like younger athletes, him establishing the Mamba Academy, to see his daughters play and to see, them just have youth basketball for, girls sports. Like everything he was doing within the game and outside of the game was huge. And, can't believe it's already been 2 years, but it's crazy.
Definitely. Any comments, Shy, before we get started?
No, I mean, just kind of piggyback on what Cottrell said. I think it's even more tragic when you look at the journey he took from being kind of like the young, cocky rookie who wasn't as good as he thought he was at the time, becoming the star that he was, going through the troubles he had off the court, and then really realizing, what was going to be at the core of what he believed in, have it be family, his wife, his daughters, giving back to the younger athletes, all that stuff, to make that full 180 and, acknowledge you made mistakes in your life and then really concentrate on being a better person, husband, father, giving back, and then being at like the peak of that, just having retired and really being involved with Gigi and all that stuff, and then have it all cut short and not really be able to see the end of that journey. That's the sad part of it for me.
100%. I agree with everything you guys said. So, look, we're talking about a champion, Kobe Bryant. Let's get into UFC. Let's talk about the champion, Francis Ngannou.
The champ.
So, watching that fight, we can give Moreno and Figueiredo whatever comments we want before that, but the main event in that fight, Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane, and then what ensued with Dana White before the fight, which is absurd, and then after, it's really interesting to talk about.
Well, yeah.
To learn that Francis fought that fight with a torn MCL,
and he's got damage to the ACL. I mean, they're doing both when they go in. So I mean, that's I don't know if that's one of those things where it's like a lucky break. Because I mean, I didn't read or hear one person say that Ngannou was going to come out and out wrestle Gane. Like that was going to be his game plan, and I feel like he was kind of almost forced into it. I give him all the credit in the world for not pulling out of the fight. Which is crazy. I mean, when you're fighting for a belt, I mean, to go into the cage like that, not full strength, and not 100% healthy is wild to me. I mean, people have pulled out for a lot less in the UFC.
That's why I was so shocked with the knee. They had the knee splints on, and they were talking about that like he got it approved, and there's got to be a significant injury there, and then to find out afterwards that it was torn MCL.
Yep,
that's absurd to me, man. And to think that, God, control.
I was just going to say the crazy thing is that I was just reading a report from Cyril Gane's camp that said his trainer was in the corner telling him, "Hey, don't attack the knee like we think it's a bait move that they're trying to, play these mind games with you to like get some sort of advantage here. So, don't attack those knees. Like there's nothing wrong with them." So I think it's kind of crazy that, we didn't even see Cyril Gane really take advantage of the knee issues either.
I felt like I could tell, but one of the things that I was floored about was, one, Francis's stamina in the fight. Like, we all said this. If their fight gets past the third round, Francis ain't got a shot. And by all scorecards, he was down 2-1 after 3. And he won the 4th and 5th round by taking him down and wrestling. That was absurd to me.
I actually, in a weird way, I think it helped him. I think it always was in the back of his mind that he had to pace himself a little bit. Like, he couldn't go crazy out there, and then if you gas out and then you're on 2 bad knees, like that's a recipe for disaster. And especially with heavyweights in the later rounds, man. If you're taking somebody down and you're the guy on top, it's still tiring to try to hold somebody down. But if you're a big guy like that on the bottom, I mean that's just absolutely exhausting. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. 4th and 5th round of a fight like that, he was in the better position. Again, I don't think anybody ever picked for that fight to go the way that it went.
I don't think anybody could have predicted Francis Ngannou would take him down and win the fight that way.
And out wrestle him? No.
And I read it right. Cyril Gane's never been taken down before, right? They said that during the fight and afterwards. That was the first time he's ever been put on his back.
Yep.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So for that fight to go that way, I was floored. I have a little bit more respect for Cyril Gane after that fight because I was always wondering why he was the favorite going into the fight, but I feel like Vegas knew about the knee injury. Like I really do. Like I feel like that they were protecting themselves in that situation.
Well, they always do. I mean, they always know before everybody else. How that always happens, I mean, it kind of leads you to believe. That's why a lot of people think a lot of things are fixed. I mean, you can see with the NBA, like you'll see a line drop like 2 or 3 points, and then 2 hours later you'll hear like, oh, JoJo's not playing. But they knew 2 hours before anybody else did. Listen, man, I was thoroughly impressed with the performance, everything that he was going through, plus everything he's got going on outside the octagon with ownership and everything else. To get in there, get in the mental space to perform at that level, win a championship fight against a very good fighter, walk out of there with your belt, go get your knees worked on, continue on as champ. I think it's a very admirable win for Ngannou.
So, any argument with the scorecard? Did you have it 48-47 also?
I did.
I did also.
I did too. But the first round I had Gane winning, but to me, that was one of those toss-up rounds. If someone had Francis winning that round, I wouldn't have been too upset about it, but I also had it 3-2 for Gane. I mean, 3-2 for Francis.
I had the same. So I guess before we get into the contract dispute with him and Dana, the only controversy on the entire card was the Figueiredo Moreno fight. How did you have that scored?
I had it 3-2 for Figueiredo in that one as well.
I also had it 3-2 for Figueiredo in that one.
Same.
I think you had. Did you have 3-2 Moreno?
Mm-mm. No, I said he lost.
The first round was the questionable round, where not much things happened in that first round, because 2, 3, 4, and 5 was clear as day.
Yeah, one was very. I think a lot of people look at one. We've talked about it. You hear it on telecast and everything. We're big on it as well. You got to beat the champ. That's one of those rounds where when it's a stalemate like that and not much is going on, a lot of the times the judges will give a score a round like that to the champ. They all gave it for Figueiredo, so ended up helping him win the fight. So again, I think 2 through 5 were very, very clear. I think there was clear 10-9 winners in all 4 of those rounds. That being said, leaving round 1 up in the air, I thought Figueiredo won the fight. If they would have said Moreno would have won 3-2, I don't think you could have made a huge argument for it.
I would not have argued that. If Moreno won that fight 3-2 and they gave the first round to Moreno, right, I wouldn't argue that at all.
Agree.
I thought it was literally that because Moreno outstruck him. Moreno had the most dominant round in the fight, the second round. That was clearly the most dominant round in the fight. But what Figueiredo did, and I think it really played well on the judges' scorecard, is he dropped him 3 times.
Yeah, he did.
Like literally dropped him 3 times.
People remember knockdowns.
Yeah, and the thing that was crazy to me was Figueiredo's camp was telling him don't engage, like do not get into like a war with Moreno. I don't know why that was their strategy. I felt like Figueiredo looked best when he was in those exchanges. Am I wrong?
I think him getting in and out. Yeah, I mean, I think him getting in and out is one thing versus they were also they didn't, especially learning from the second fight, they didn't want him in the clinch. They get to the ground. That is where you saw Moreno kind of dominate the second fight. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's one of those things, man. It's tough. You want your guy to get in and out, get in the pocket, get his shots, get out, but it's also where you get caught. But
Moreno was the one that got caught 3 times.
I know.
But they were telling Figueiredo not to.
I know. I think they looked at it. I think they probably thought they also had the fight in hand at that point with 3 knockdowns, everything else.
No, this was end of the 3rd round. They told him do not engage in that. That you heard what I'm talking about, right?
I think they didn't want a repeat. I know what you're talking about. I feel like they just didn't want a repeat of what happened in that second fight because once Moreno got the rhythm and everything going, then like that's when especially like he feeds off that energy. So once I don't want to say he's a rhythm fighter because he's more than that, but once he really gets it going and he has everything clicking on all cylinders, like he could put you down quick. So I kind of understand where his camp was going. I feel like Figueiredo's side, they thought that the fight was going in their favor and that things were working as they were. So they didn't want him to go out and do anything more. They just wanted him to continue to be consistent so that, of course they didn't want it to go to decision, but they felt like if things kept going that way, they were going to win the fight and go home with the belt. And that's ultimately what happened.
I've always believed in the mentality to beat the champ. You be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And granted, I scored the fight unbiasedly, 48-47 for Figueiredo. I I don't maybe I don't feel like he's the champ. Like he's the champ, right? Like I'm gonna say something controversial, but like I watched that fight. I don't think he beat the champ. Like Moreno landed more. He had more significant strikes, but Figueiredo won the rounds. But like if I watched that fight, if that was like a street fight, I would think Moreno won the fight. No, any question there? No.
For me, it's tough. I just feel like with everything, like
I know it's not a
Moreno,
street fight.
Yeah, I know. I'm just with Moreno and Figueiredo, like granted, and this is also their third time fighting. Like the first fight got called a draw. So yes, while I'm with you, I would like to see you beat the champ. So like how Moreno took the belt from Figueiredo. I'm not mad at the outcome at this
That's
fight.
fair.
That's all.
Okay, so let's move into the Francis Ngannou contract situation. One of the things that was very clear was Dana White did not go in the ring and put the belt on him. He was nowhere to be found when Francis said he felt like he did not have a promoter. And the thing that's most telling was they let him know as he was on his way to the fight, 2 hours before the fight, that they were suing him for talking to Jake Paul's camp.
Well, that didn't come from Dana. That came from like ownership and stuff like that. And they got the memo. I think they were already at the arena, but because they walked into his dressing room, he was already getting ready, and they said they were like talking about it. He's like, "What's going on?" And they told him, they were like, UFC is threatening to sue us over talks with so forth, and Jake Paul's agent, who was a guy who used to work for the UFC, who got fired for some shady stuff. So needless to say, they don't like him. Dana's talked about him publicly a couple times in interviews. Has a lot of choice words for him. My problem with it is you're mixing at that point business and the actual fighting. If that's really how you feel and you want to have a discussion about it, or if you even want to sue him, at the end of the day, he's still your champ. He's still promoting. He's still going out and fighting for you and making you money. I think it's a shit move to do it 2 hours before he's going to go in the cage and fight. If you want to have that conversation, or if you even want to serve him papers or whatever you want to do, you do it after the fight.
100% agree with you. Could not agree with you more there.
That part I don't like. The other part of it is his agents could have walked in and not talked about it in front of him too. They could have waited till the fight was over before you even bring it up to him. But listen, they're clearly on different pages going different directions.
I feel like it would have been a little bit more fair to him to let him know beforehand. And if they are suing him, Francis could have just, I'm not fighting then.
You can't do that. I mean, you're breach of contract. You're going to get sued for a lot of stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, their number one concern should be the welfare and the mental wherewithal of their client. If I'm that guy, I don't talk about it in front of him before he goes in the cage. When he comes out, maybe the next day or whatever, be like, hey, listen, like we have a problem we really need to talk about.
I feel like we're talking about the dilemma with Vince Vaughn and Kevin James. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
It's a dilemma, right? Do you tell him? Do you not tell him? I think it's a shitbag move by Dana and the UFC to send him
that part's more UFC, not Dana. The other stuff is Dana.
Okay.
Not putting the belt on your heavyweight champion at the end of a pay-per-view like you do for everybody else is not a stand-up move. And then not doing the press conference. Again, I don't know if that's strictly Francis, but again, I mean, he if you ever watched a post pay-per-view press conference with Dana White, he loves them. Like, he loves going in there, mixing it up, telling reporters they're idiots, being like, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. I don't know who the hell told you that. Like, you're an idiot. He loves the back and forth. So for him to skip it, again, I mean, I think it's messed up that heavyweight division is always kind of like looked at as like the elite, like kind of like king of the hill and the most prestigious weight class. And you just had a guy who's been a killer for you and win, and you didn't give him his flowers. So that to me is shitty.
Okay. So, last comments on that, I just want to ask a quick hypothetical question. Just because it's been asked a couple times on the wire line, I just want to get your opinion. If Francis Ngannou fought Tyson Fury in a boxing match with UFC gloves, that's what they're talking about. First of all, there's no way this fight ever goes to decision. It doesn't go past 5 rounds. Who wins the fight? Boxing match with UFC type gloves. Because that's the fight they're talking about making.
boxing rules makes it tough. I know everybody wants to jump on the Nagano thing because of his power. I think you have to not forget that Tyson Fury hits really freaking hard too. He's definitely the better, more technical striker. And he's a big dude. I don't know. I would love to see it. I would still lean Fury though.
I think a lot of people would because it's a boxing fight. But I'll tell you right now, though, Fury could hit Francis a couple times, and I think Francis would still be standing. If Francis really connects with Fury, he is knocking him clean the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, he's
just making that clear.
He's put people to sleep with 12-ounce gloves, dude. I mean, you got to remember he's going to be swinging a lot harder now with 4-ounce gloves as well, and he's the way more accurate striker. I don't believe that. I mean, I'm by no means do I not think Nagano can knock out Fury. But if Fury lands 2 clean shots with those gloves on to Nagano, he's going down.
Okay, I would say that I just feel like how the fight went with him and Wilder. I would say that Fury is susceptible to the knockout. I would probably still lean for him winning, but especially with 4-ounce gloves, I don't think it's crazy by any stretch of the imagination to think that Francis could knock him out.
No.
Okay, well, it'll be a fun hypothetical. Let's get into non-hypotheticals.
You're not going to see that anytime soon.
Maybe next April. That's what we're talking about.
Dana's not going to let that fight happen.
We'll see.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into the MLB Hall of Fame. We inducted one member yesterday. The final ballot for Bonds, Clemens, and Schilling. They're all off the ballot now. David Ortiz was the only person that got into the Hall of Fame. And I think that I have pretty strong feelings on this. And I know that Bill is going to have a different view than me, and that's fine. I'm very strongly against the fact that you're going to let David Ortiz in when he has had connections with steroids before in the past. But you're not going to have the all-time leader in Cy Youngs, the all-time leader in home runs, even sniff the Hall of Fame. If you want to let cheaters in, let them in. If you don't want to let cheaters in, then anybody that's been attached to cheating and that's tested positive or it's been on these lists, outside speculation, obviously. You can't just say speculation. Anybody should be off that list. I think every single person. So I disagree with David Ortiz, especially him going in first ballot and as a designated hitter. 0 chance David Ortiz should be in first ballot. I think there's a lot of people that should have got in. I think Scott Rowland should have got in. I think Todd Helton should have got in. But I can't. Listen, Cottrell, let me get your thoughts and then I'll let Bill go because Bill has a very, very breakdown of this. Do you think Bonds and Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. I definitely think that they should be in the Hall of Fame. And I understand, if you think that because they use steroids and, got caught using steroids that they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, then I'm not going to say that I disagree with you, but my counterpoint would be David Ortiz just got in and he got caught using steroids before. And the crazy thing about it is that the MLB didn't care about steroids until some reporters went out and wrote a book about it. And then Jose Canseco spilled the beans in his book. And that's when it really got this big following. And I know they had different rules in place where they said, steroids were illegal in the 90s and they didn't actually start testing until early 2000s. But MLB didn't care until they had all the eyes on them. And I'm sure you guys are going to get into it more as well, but Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, those guys juicing and the big home run push and, going back and forth with that. I just feel like the MLB is being very selective when they care about steroids versus when they don't care about steroids. So that's my whole issue with all of this, and I think they should be in.
So, Cottrell, I love that point, and I want to clip that point because I think everybody and every platform needs to hear that. I agree with you. I think the MLB is being very selective when they care about steroids. The biggest thing that you brought up that I think is even better is the fact that McGwire and Sosa got used. They got used. The 94 baseball strike ruined baseball. And when baseball was ruined, something needed to bring it back. And what brought it back was the summers that you watched McGwire and Sosa go nuts. Everyone was tuning in on their TV to watch to see when McGwire would hit 62 or when Sosa would break the record or when McGwire hit 70. At the end of the day, it's very simple. The MLB is being very selective, and I disagree completely with the way they elect for the Hall of Fame. Bill, take it away.
Well, first off, I didn't agree with David Ortiz getting in. I'm 100% against all of them. So that was a little misleading. I don't think Ortiz should have got in for the same reason that McGwire's not in, that Sosa's not in, that Rafael Palmeira's not in, that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens aren't in. You can't, in for lack of a better word, you can't cheat and then act like you didn't and want to be held above it. So my whole thing is, like you guys are saying, they're being selective. They're really not being. They weren't being selective until they let Ortiz in yesterday, which opened up another huge can of worms because they weren't letting Sosa in. McGwire dropped off the ballot because he didn't have enough votes. He didn't even make it 10 years. Palmeiro dropped off. So they're holding, in that aspect, they're holding Barry and Roger to the same standard that they did with everybody who got caught previous. My problem is with Ortiz. I heard a explanation about it earlier. Bob Costas was on MLB earlier. I don't agree with it. I think he's trying to rationalize it as well, of how he kind of fell through the cracks versus why Barry, Roger, all the other guys didn't. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, man. These guys knew what they were doing. There was no. They decided to take all this stuff, to cheat, get the bigger contracts, get all the fame, so forth and down the line. This is always going to be a punishment for it. Manny Ramirez is another guy. I don't think Gary Sheffield's going to get in. His numbers are borderline. He's been connected to Balco. He was in the Mitchell report. These guys aren't going to get in, for better or worse. If you agree with the voting process or not, I think there could be arguments to be made about how they vote. But I think they've also taken a clear stand that the guys that knowingly did it in the prime of their careers and broke these records, that they're not going to vote them in.
Okay, so let me give you a counterpoint to that.
Go ahead.
PD actually brought up a great point, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Ryan Howard's considered more of a Hall of Fame player if, when his 58 home run season, he was chasing Maris and how close he would have got to breaking that record instead of him having to try to chase impossible records by McGwire and Bonds and Sosa?
I don't disagree with that at all.
But see, that's the thing. Like, these guys tainted the game so much. Like, and David Ortiz is right on that list too.
I agree with you, but you literally just said it. They tainted the game. So why did they get in?
I'm not saying they shouldn't. I think Ortiz shouldn't get in.
I agree. I'm not arguing that at all.
Okay.
At one bit, I said that.
Do you think Pete Rose should be in?
Me personally, yes. I don't know where I am, minority, majority, whatever. For what they've actually been able to prove with Pete Rose, I think what Pete Rose did is not as bad as what these guys have done.
So you're saying that's a very key point that he said. From what they've been able to prove.
Yep.
So the problem with that is, what if they've proven something they don't want to let out?
Like what?
So that he bet against his own team.
But they've never ever come up with anything for that.
So if they did and they had proof of it,
that changes.
But if they did,
then you're rigging games.
Hold on, but if they did and they had proof of it, do you think they would really let that information out?
Yes, because Major League Baseball hates Pete Rose. So yes, 100%. If they have proof of that,
but it taints their game more than anything.
That doesn't matter. They've drugged Pete Rose through the mud and then some numerous times over and over. And the reason Pete Rose is such a big issue is because of that reason. He's either bet on his team or he was betting while he wasn't a player. So that's always the big argument with him as well. Reward him for, if you want to keep the ban in place and everything else, don't let him coach, don't let him be around a Major League Baseball team, but reward him for what he did as a player. Trust me, if they could prove that he was betting against his team when he was playing, that would have came out. Because they get more pressure. Take Bonds and everybody else away. There's never been more pressure for them to put somebody in the Hall of Fame ever than there is for Pete Rose.
Okay. I disagree with that. I think that he broke one of the golden rules of baseball, and you bet on the game. And like, I don't know what they can prove. I just know they could prove that he bet on baseball. Betting on your own team is one thing, but and if that's the only thing he did, and that's the only thing they've ever proven, which is fair, then I can understand an argument for him. But I feel like if you're against Bonds, if you're against Clemens, if you're against Palmeiro, you have to be against Rose. You can't, I don't figure, you have to be on one side of the fence or the other. If you cheated, if you broke the rules, you don't get in. Or,
I got a question for you guys.
Go ahead, please. I love it.
Do we all think, or is there a idea that David Ortiz is now the first player to ever use steroids that's in the Hall of Fame?
No. I think there's plenty of players that use steroids that are in the Hall of Fame. Pudge Rodriguez is one of them.
Pudge is one of the, I'm going to say mystical, but he's one of the people that was mentioned as being a bystander in Juan Gonzalez's issue in the Mitchell report, and he never tested positive for anything. He had the year where he came to camp thinner. His numbers didn't really drop, though, so it's tough. It's a very... That's the fine line part where they're going to have issues down the line. But other than him, I mean, you look at those other guys that put up monster numbers around that time. Juan Gonzalez, Manny Ramirez at the beginning of his career. None of those guys are getting in. Rafael Palmeiro got 500 and almost 80 home runs, was a 300 hitter, one of the best switch hitters to ever play the game of baseball. He's not getting in. There's now four guys that have played baseball that hit 500 home runs, which is an absolute golden number for baseball. Golden number. And like 4 guys that have absolutely tested positive and used PEDs, none of them are in and none of them are getting in. That is a bold statement, and I think they're going to stick with it.
So CJ Brancato is on the wire line, and I want to comment to him. I would be fine. He said that whole era used steroids.
You're mixing two errors, but kind of, yeah.
Okay, that whole era was juicing is what he said. I want to respond to that. CJ, I'm fine if they allowed that whole error into baseball before they cracked down on it in 2003 and 2004. I'm fine with them allowing everyone in, but don't have a double standard with it. You can't allow Papi in and not allow Bonds in. And if the Hall of Fame is to tell the story of baseball, if it's to tell the story of what MLB baseball is all about, or baseball is all about, and you don't have the leading home run hitter of all time, then delete his records. Delete them all. Let's just not say he's the leading home run hitter. The leading Cy Young getter of all time. You can't have one or the other. I disagree. If you don't want to put him in the Hall of Fame, get rid of his records. Say they're tainted. That's fine. Because people like Ryan Howard that were chasing that Roger Maris record never got any publicity for his 58 home runs because Bonds had already hit 76. And he wasn't anywhere near it. And that hits a little bit home to me because Ryan Howard just got pulled from the ballot, which he never would have got pulled from the ballot if everybody didn't juice in the 90s.
Ryan Howard's not a Hall of Fame player.
I agree with you. He only had 7 years of prime. I get it. His Achilles tear. But my point being is he deserves a little bit more respect for his 58 home run season, his MVP season, than he gets. And he doesn't get it because it's not talked about as one of the great seasons in MLB history because you had McGuire, Sosa, Bonds, all these guys smashed that record juiced up.
Yeah, but you're sitting here defending those players.
I'm not defending them. I'm saying I'm fine with them either all being in or all being out. Just set a standard and live with that standard. I'm defending the fact that I don't think that it should be, well, David Ortiz was nice to the media. He should be in. But Barry Bonds was a dickhead, so he shouldn't. That shouldn't matter how you treat the media.
That's a narrative people are spitting because he didn't get in. Did it maybe factor into certain people's? Yeah. The biggest thing with Bonds is he used steroids. They started testing in 2003. He used them for 5 more years until he retired. Like, got popped. Again, if you go back, the narrative on this has actually changed so much as well because it was so long ago, and people forget a lot of stuff. Go read Game of Shadows. You read that book and then come back and tell me you have the same perception of Barry Bonds.
I think Barry Bonds cheated. I said that.
Those guys went to federal prison for what they did with Ferdinand and Balco. Like, they spent millions of dollars, and I mean millions, and he was part of it, to come up with things specifically not to get detected on a Major League Baseball drug test. And then went out there, hit home runs, broke McGuire's record, broke Hank Aaron's record, and literally just said, fuck you to baseball. Like, there was going to be repercussions for that, and there is. The Hall of Fame is an honor. It's not a right. It's not a privilege. They are not going to give him the honor of getting in because of what he did his last 5 years of baseball. It's really that simple. Sorry.
My whole thing with that is that if it was really that easy, I'm sure there were plenty other stars that were doing the exact same thing. I'm sure it wasn't just Barry.
How many of them are in the Hall of Fame?
How
many of them in the Hall of Fame?
Who knows?
How many from that? From 2000? Anybody from 1999 to 2005, 2008, 9, when Bonds finally retired, that had those numbers. How many of those people are in the Hall of Fame right now?
Who knows?
How many? How many?
Well, he doesn't know because he doesn't know.
I'll answer it for you. The answer is zero. The answer is zero.
Well, zero that got popped.
So you're telling me like no one else?
Right.
No one else.
What he's saying? Popped. Correct. What he's saying.
Okay, so give me somebody. That is the crux of your argument. Give me somebody who was a star back then that got popped that got into the Hall of Fame.
I guarantee you, there's someone from the 90s to the 2000s that used steroids and are in the Hall of Fame.
You're mixing two things. He started using them in 2000 where they could prove it. He then used it for the next 7 years. 5 years of that span is when they were testing for steroids. When it became officially illegal to use it. Give me somebody from that time era that was that good, that got popped, that got into the Hall of Fame. Like, people need to stop making this like it was a witch hunt. Yeah, but he cheated to get it, bro. You can't rely on that and say, oh, the dude broke the record when he was juiced to the freaking gills, and then be like, oh, he's the home run leader, and be like, oh, well, that's no big deal. It is a big deal. And to Gene's point, that's why it's a big deal. Roger Maris, to a lot of people, still owns the home run record. Hank Aaron, who is one of the biggest Barry Bonds people ever, supporter ever, him and Willie Mays, both came out publicly and said that he shouldn't be in. And if you do put him in, there should be an asterisk on next to all his stats and on his plaque. At the bottom of his plaque, it should say he got caught using steroids. That is one of the most deafening things you could hear from a top 5 or 6 player to ever be on this planet and play the game, who loves Barry Bonds.
Bro, this is great. We gotta move on. But that was perfect. Warren G, if you need a timestamp, you got your timestamp. That's my guy Warren G back there. But we gotta move on to the NFL. And before we move on to the NFL, we have this segment is going to be brought to you by Old North Contracting, where they specialize in all your home improvement needs, from roofing to siding to interior remodels and additions. They are a local, veteran, family-owned and operated company serving the tri-state area. This is some of the work that they've done, and you can see the photos on the screen, and we'll post them on the Facebook page. I mean, this is some beautiful stuff. The owner, Ryan Goodman, his phone number is 215-756-7456, and the project manager, Chris Hackney, an avid listener to the show, his phone number is 267-535-9957. Look at the left and right picture there. Like, that's a beautiful remodel, guys. Like, if you guys need someone to do to work in your house or construction, give these guys a call. This before and after picture I was floored with. Now, ignore the little bit of mess in the kitchen, but look at the cabinets, everything that's going around in that photo, and then look at the after photo. The flooring, it looks a million times better. So that's a great picture there. If you don't mind posting their contact information just one more time on the screen for all the listeners at home. It's Old North Contracting. They do commercial and residential, and they're friends of the show. They're good people. So give them a call, reach out, and hopefully they can do a project near you. So let's get in the NFL. I'm ready for the NFL. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So this was the greatest weekend of football in the history of the NFL.
Ever.
Would anyone argue that?
I mean, I don't know what your argument is. I mean, you 4 walk-off games. I mean,
it's never been done.
No.
It's never been done where there had 4 games all end on the last play. And it almost was all 4 road teams, which is even more absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it looked for a while that it was going to be all 4 when Buffalo scored. I don't know if that's ever happened either. Listen, if you are a football fan, you had an amazing weekend. That's all I can say.
The excitement I had through it. Now, listen, I'll be honest. The games on Sunday were a little better than they were on Saturday.
Yeah, but as you like to say, Saturday was a good appetizer.
It's a very good appetizer.
It was.
So let's start with the appetizer, and then we'll lead right into the main event.
Mozzarella sticks.
I think that the Titans, listen, if I had a record of me picking the Titans games, I'd probably be like 1-11.
I'm on that boat.
I am never right on the Titans. When I say they're going to lose, they win. When I say they're going to win, they lose. So I apologize to Joseph Jeffers and the rest of the Titans community for being so confident in them winning that game versus Cincinnati Bengals. I am going to make a really ridiculous statement. And I'm okay with making this ridiculous statement because I've seen enough. I think
I know what this is going to be.
One, just this isn't a ridiculous statement. Ryan Tannehill's not your guy. That Titans team is a good football team. It was very obvious Derrick Henry wasn't back to 100%. He didn't look 100% to me.
He's effective still, though.
Effective, just not 100%.
Yeah,
It wasn't dominant.
It wasn't Derrick Henry, but he was good enough to win that game.
Here comes your ridiculous statement.
Ruh-roh.
All right. I'll start with this one. Joe Burrow reminds me of a young Tom Brady. I don't care how ludicrous this sounds. The guy is so cool under pressure, and he wins football games, regardless of what's around him. He got sacked 9 times and still threw for 380 yards. In the era of Manning and Brady, we could be looking at Burrow and Herbert as the next Manning and Brady. I mean, that's literally it could be Rodgers and Brady, however you want to pin it. But these two quarterbacks, I think there's a big difference between them. And I would take Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, over Justin Herbert 100 times out of 100. I would take him all day over him. I think Joe Burrow's a winner, and I think he's done more with less in that Cincinnati team than any quarterback has done in their first full year.
I think you're taking some liberties there, but I mean, what is less about that offense?
Less comment.
Yeah, the offensive line.
All right, he had 2 receivers go over 1,000 yards. He's got Joe Mixon who rushed for 1,200. Like, let's not act like the dude's got weapons. Like, no, if you're going to compare, if you want to start comparing to Brady, Chase already is better than every wide receiver Brady played for, except the year he had Moss.
Okay, so with all that, all the 8 teams that were left going into this past weekend, right? Out of the 8 teams who had the 8th best defense, the Bengals. Come on, guys, it shouldn't be that tough here. I mean, out of the 8 teams left who had the 8th best offensive line, it's the Bengals. Now, and what they did, what they did going into Tennessee and knocking off the Titans, the 1 seed, and guys, don't write them off this week. I'm telling you right now, the Chiefs are going to start slow in that game. It's a typical game after an emotional high that you start slow. I get it's the AFC Championship game, but bro, one of the best bets you could ever make right now is whatever the Bengals first quarter line is. Take it.
So the Bengals defense that didn't let Derrick Henry be dominant and had 3 interceptions isn't a good defense?
They're the 8th best defense out of the 8 teams left.
I don't think so.
Well, who's 8th?
I mean, Kansas City's defense isn't anything to get excited about, and I said that last week. I was told they were going to shut Buffalo down. That didn't happen.
No one said they were going to shut Buffalo down. I had 31-27.
You said they had the better defense of the 2, and I said I just don't think Kansas City's defense is that good.
I still think they have the better defense of the 2.
Okay. But regardless, listen, I think Joe Burrow is an absolute stud. I think he's a superstar. I'm not ready to say him and Herbert are Brady Manning because the game we're going to talk about last, I'm assuming, has, in my opinion, the 2 best quarterbacks on the planet.
Well, they're Mahomes and Allen.
But that would be Brady Manning then.
They're Mahomes and Allen. They're different creatures. But Burrow and Herbert are pocket passers like Brady and Manning were. My point being is Mahomes and Allen are just different creatures. Like you can make I don't know who you can compare Patrick Mahomes to. Patrick Mahomes, I can compare Michael Jordan. Like
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. It's Jesus Christ all you want. Patrick Mahomes has done more in his first.
What that means.
Just
I don't know.
Unbelievable. Like could be the greatest of all time. The guy's been to what? Hopefully, could be 3 straight Super Bowls. His first.
We just throw words out like just wild stuff.
I don't.
Well, I mean, like
I wouldn't say the trajectory is there. I mean, you got a 4 straight AFC Championship games.
He's not there yet. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's one of those.
It's a projection.
No. You just said he's Michael Jordan. It's
an 86.
It's one of those things where, like, just too much like prism of the moment stuff. Yeah, like he's gonna go to his 4th AFC Championship game. 2 years ago, they were talking about how he's the next dynasty and how he'll win 6 before he's 30. He's won 1.
This is 4th year, bro.
Okay, so he's won
he could
1.
Win 2 in 4 years.
He could, or he could lose again. My point is like it's like all of like we just throw these things out there because we want them to be true and be great, but they're not that until it happens. Like
what do you call a projection?
2 years ago, them saying that they're in the next.
Them? That's not me.
They did. He said it. Patrick Mahomes said it. What do you mean who?
I'm talking about me.
He said it. Patrick Mahomes said it. I'm just saying in general, it's a silly thing that we throw around all the time with all these like young superstars. Just let them play. Let them play, and then at the end of the day, their numbers and what they accomplish is going to speak for itself. We don't need to sit here and hype him up and call him the next Michael Jordan, call him blah, 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 anything else. He's the first Patrick Mahomes. That's all he needs to be. If he ends up winning 9 Super Bowls, good, then he's the best ever. Until then, like, it's just all this, like, crazy, like, hot take projection shit. Like, just let him play.
There's nothing hot take about that.
Calling him Michael Jordan is a hot take, bro.
It's not.
Okay.
I don't think so. Control, what are your thoughts?
I mean, when you
Bill
got
definitely needs a hug. CJ,
I'm not
I
saying
agree.
he's doing it by
I don't need a
himself.
hug.
He's definitely not doing it by himself, but what Patrick Mahomes is doing is absolutely special. I mean, I know we're going to get to the breakdown of the game later, but just the way that he wills his team to victory and just the fact that you have Patrick Mahomes on your side, but to an extent, it's like, all right, if I got Patrick Mahomes, I know I got a shot to potentially go win a championship this year. So in that aspect, I do agree with you. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest ever or he is the greatest ever, but by all accounts, the projection is definitely going that way. You go to 4 straight AFC Championship games and you've only been a starting quarterback for 4 years. That says something. The only time you've lost in the playoffs is to Tom Brady. That's it. That says a lot.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. That's exactly where my head goes. Brady right now is the greatest of all time, and I completely agree with that. And I think that we're watching a situation where someone can catch him. I didn't think we'd ever see that, but I'm seeing a situation where someone could catch him. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying he's going to. But my projection of his career is he could be the greatest of all time, barring a catastrophic injury. He's got an amazing arm talent, great field vision. He can throw the ball across his body, no look passes. He's got a cannon. The guy's elusive. He's intelligent. And he feels like he's never out of a game. Yo, when you watch that Chiefs versus Bills game, and with 13 seconds left and Buffalo celebrating, that game's over, I want you to take a look at what Patrick Mahomes' face looked like. He looked like he was warming up on the sideline. Like, I've done this shit before. I got this. Him and Joe Burrow have that sense of coolness about them that I don't see in every quarterback. So we talk about like Ryan Tannehill and God.
Did you see Alex Elmore's comment?
What did he say?
He said it's coaching. They were in the conference championship game with Alex Smith. That's absurd. Absolutely absurd.
They weren't in the conference championship game with Alex Smith, were they? Am I missing something?
No, I don't think so. But even still, they made it to the playoffs with them. But it's completely different.
Can someone pull that up? I don't think that's accurate.
Different.
Alex Smith was in a conference championship game with Andy Reid. I don't remember that. Maybe the 49ers. He's talking about the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick season? All right, whatever. Let's get through the rest of the breakdown. Cincinnati versus Tennessee. What were your thoughts on that, Control?
I mean, the biggest surprise to me, I would say, was how how confident the Bengals looked. Like, I'm not going to say I was surprised they didn't look like they were afraid of the Titans, but in a week where the Titans were coming off of a bye and Derrick Henry was back, AJ Brown was back, Julio Jones was back, and they were the healthiest that they've been in probably the last 6 to 7 weeks. I was very surprised to see how mediocre the offense looked with those guys out there on the field. The Bengals did a really good job at containing those guys, and then at the end of the game, when the game mattered most, you saw that connection between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's why they used the number 5 pick on him, and that's why he's a special player that we've said he had not Hall of Fame caliber, but we said he was going to be one of those generational talents, and he's really putting that on display right now.
I just looked it up. He lost in the wild card game 10-7 his last year in Kansas City. But regardless, I agree with you everything you just said as far as the Bengals and the Titans game goes. Bill, any extra thoughts on the Bengals Titans before we get into Aaron's choke job, which I'm sure you're excited about?
No, I mean, listen, like, I think we just covered a lot of it. Like, Joe Burrow is elite. I mean, he's got a great offense minus the line. He's got weapons. And I think you saw a lot of this when he came out of college. Like, he just has a moxie about him. He has one of those things. He has the it factor. He's very calm under pressure. He's a guy that everybody clearly on that team loves playing for and playing around and playing with. He's going to be around for a long time. I think if you're just looking in the AFC alone, between Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, and Burrow, I mean, you still have to throw in Lamar Jackson there. We're going to have a lot of good football for a long period of time, and that Cincinnati team is just going to keep getting better. So I would hate to say for Cottrell's sake, but the days of the Bengals being the doormat of the AFC North, I think, are over for a long time.
Well, it's back to the Browns.
I wasn't going to say that, Cottrell.
I will. It's the Steelers and the Browns.
No, it's the Steelers. All right. We'll take our third place participation trophy. Let's get into the Green Bay screw job, the choke job that happened in Green Bay.
I was going to say screw job.
Yeah, they basically got started off the game. They went up 7-0. They looked like bats out of hell. They were unbelievable. They couldn't be stopped until they were stopped the next drive. The rest of the game.
And the 9 after that.
I was so floored at that game, and I think one of the things that stood out to me the most was how bad Aaron Rodgers looked, and then he brought it on, and like the first comment he makes after the game was, well, the special teams. The first thing you brought up was the special teams. Like, granted, I know the 49ers didn't score a touchdown, but this isn't on anybody, but the special teams had a block punt and was terrible. You can't score 7 points in a game, a playoff game, and win that game, especially at home. And I'm tired of hearing the narrative of, I couldn't wait till we get one here at home, and then you get one at home, and you lay a dud like that. That was a dud. He's dog shit.
He's a great regular season quarterback. Talented beyond belief. As much as I don't like him as kind of a person, I've never been one to say that he's not a good quarterback. He's an incredible talent. That being said, his playoff numbers are what they are. I think he's 4 or 5 games under 500 now. And again, I mean, kind of Gene's point, score 10 points at home, and come out and the first thing out of your mouth is this and this and this. We averaged, I think, 29 points all year as an offense. That just doesn't fly with me. You're the leader. You're supposed to be the supreme talent, and the reason that Green Bay is what it is, and you're so good, and you're this, that. Can't go out and score 10 points and lose a football game and point the finger anywhere else. Special teams is one of the 3 parts of the game. Deal with it. I mean, it happens. Nobody cares about special teams when they're kicking field goals to like bail the offense out and every other thing.
Maybe the part that I'm missing is the fact that, you can't blame it on the defense this year. So you just need to pick something else.
Right.
Like, defense wasn't the issue.
And he played well last year when they lost.
Yeah.
He had an okay game.
I agree. Cottrell, what are your thoughts on the game? Did you
Not going to stick up for him. I mean, it is what it is. He didn't play great, and they lost the football game. I think it's crazy that he went to the media and said, special teams needs to be better when the offense needed to be better. Now, that's not to say that I thought Aaron had a bad game. I mean, he completed almost 70% of his passes, had no touchdowns and no interceptions. So, he didn't add anything to the dynamic of the game. And yeah, there were some mistakes made, in that game where you had a fumble from Mercedes Lewis and they weren't able to put up points. The strength of their team is their offense. They have the reigning MVP, and he wasn't able to put up points on the board for them. So I'm always there to go to bat for Aaron, and I do think that some of the criticism he has is unwarranted. Not this time. Not this time at all.
I can't believe I'm about to stick up for him, but later on in that press conference, he did say he did start to take some of the blame.
Oh, he did. No,
he did. Granted, he had to be pressed on it, but he did. But again, that's one of my biggest gripes with him is I of who he is just as a person. And you hit it right on the head. If you're a leader and you're the face of that franchise, you can't up your press conference, and that is a microcosm of everything that's wrong with him. And why, as great of a quarterback as he is, he just rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and it's documented that I'm one of them.
All right, so let's get into Rams versus Bucks. It was a blowout. Rams won that game going away, and
it would have been a slaughter.
It's funny because we watched that game and it was 27-3, and the jokes started coming online about 28-3.
Yep, and then it started,
and it like the Bucks wanted to give that game away. The Rams were like, no. Cooper Kupp fumble. No. Center's going to snap the ball 50 yards in the backfield.
Good Lord.
No. Cam Akers fumble. And I was talking to somebody online.
For the second time.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't know if clutch is the right word to use. I think they played really well. I think they came out, they were executing. I think for the most part, on offense, they kept Tampa off balance. Bowles really couldn't get into a rhythm of what he wanted to do. McVay was calling a very good game. I wouldn't say clutch. Like I said, I think with the injuries and how outmanned Tampa Bay was, I would say this. I think the Rams went in there and played well and did exactly what they needed to do to win the football game.
My fear with that team, Sean, I want to say this loud. Matt Stafford's pass to Cooper Kupp was clutch. And that was a absolutely great pass.
That ball was on the
money.
Great
situation. It was right on the money. They burnt Antoine Winfield Jr.
How Todd Bowles gets caught in that coverage of that aspect of the game, at that time of the game, is mind blowing to me.
I don't blame that on Todd Bowles.
I mean, he called that blitz. I mean, that
what?
What?
Yes. 100% on Todd Bowles. You don't have Antoine Winfield covering the all-pro offensive player of the year.
What you mean?
No, that doesn't happen.
Get him, Cottrell.
Why would you not have the safety playing deep?
Because they were in a zero. They were in a zero blitz.
Deep, but you have another guy underneath them.
Yeah, something. That's like what happened like 2 or 3 years.
That reminded me of Kevin King. I feel like that was the Kevin King play with Scotty Miller.
It was that. Literally, like, I saw it and I was like, this was. That reminded me, like,
listen, Antoine Winfield's dad was a corner. Okay.
It reminded me of the stupid Penn State Michigan game like 3 years ago when we came back to tie it, and then we got caught in a freaking blitz, and we had our strong safety covering Hamler, who just ran by him 10 yards and just walked into the end zone.
CJ, he wasn't a backup safety; he's their starter, but I get it.
No, he's a starter.
Antoine Winfield Jr. is their starter. Yeah. Same guy that chucked the deuces up to Tyreek Hill, even though Tyreek Hill's a piece of shit, but regardless.
All right, we'll get into that when we get into that game. Not that he's a piece of shit. I mean, he's a piece of shit. But I don't, like, can we get away? Can we just be done with taunting?
Yes.
Can we just be done with it?
Yes.
Like, you want to talk about, like,
you're going to bring up the Tom Brady one versus the Tyreek Hill one?
Well, not so much that, but then, I mean, Sugg got that stupid penalty. You're talking about the Winfield one from the pass, but then Tyreek did something similar, walking into the end zone against Buffalo, nothing. Like, Can we just be? It's so subjective. Like, it's like, is the line judge who just took like who just had like the under and got blown and saw that and was like, screw this. Like, you're getting 15 yards now. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, just be done with it. Like, they're all grown men,
I actually think the Sue one was properly called. Because if you watch the play with Stafford, he's not intentionally trying to kick him. Now, Sue thinks he's intentionally trying to kick him. Come on, bro.
All right, my point is that, though, if you watch it full speed, you're standing right there. As a head referee, you can at least understand why he's mad. He didn't stand over him. All he did is get up and start yelling and start pointing at him.
Face,
like, come on, man. Pointing? Like, pointing now?
I get it. Listen, I agree that the call sucks.
It's got to be gone. It's got to be done.
I agree.
Dude. It's got to be
It's
done.
subjective, too.
Like, you're going to tell me like a close game in a Super Bowl with as emotional as a game as football is. You make some big play with like a minute to go or something and just celebrate that some like cornflake guy from Nebraska, white line judge, doesn't like, and he throws a flag for 15 yards. Like, come on, man.
I love it. I love
that.
that
It's just enough.
Painted that picture for me.
That's what it is. Like, enough. Like, let these guys play. They're all grown men, dude. If you get burnt for a big play and you can't deal with some guy getting in your face, just saying that you're burnt toast or he just roasted you or something, like, don't play in the NFL. Like, don't.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
It's a joke.
Control, your thoughts on Rams versus Bucks?
Yeah, I mean the Rams showed me both sides of who they've been for the past 5 weeks. They might win a Super Bowl this year. And then they showed, but let's move on to the next week, Matt Stafford, throw at the Cooper Cup. He's somewhere down there open, and let's move on to the following week.
I'm really interested to see the McVay versus Shanahan Bowl.
So I want to get this because you view both of them very similar that I do. Both of them.
Yeah.
The odds are like one of them is throwing in a clunker this week.
Yes.
Like one of them. It doesn't matter what. Like who's going.
I think they're both offensive geniuses.
Who's going to be on the right?
Get into we got to finish with the best game of the day, Kansas City versus Josh Allen, and then we got to talk about the overtime rules for a second.
Maybe ever.
Yeah, maybe ever. So
done like perfectly cooked like big Italian meal.
Or medium rare steak. There we go.
Steak, potatoes. I'll do that too. Fine. Fair.
So
fat like food.
I posted a comment in a group that we're in. And I said this comment, and I said that neither one of these two quarterbacks are going to allow their – I agree with you.
That was with all due respect to Brady and Rodgers, obviously what Brady is now, those two guys are the best two quarterbacks on the planet, and I'm really not fielding any conversation or arguments about it.
Are you talking about Mahomes and Allen?
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Like don't give me some fancy number. I don't want to hear it. If you watch that football game Sunday, there is no argument you can make that those guys aren't 1 and 1A. They were incredible.
I agree with
incredible. Josh Allen literally had 2 perfect games in a row and lost the second.
This is we'll spark up the debate. With 13
Chiefs won.
Buffalo allowed that whole situation to happen.
Okay. Cottrell? Cottrell?
While I agree that Buffalo could have had a